Sam Bankman-Fried has been arrested in the Bahamas and is expected to be extradited here in the United States, where he faces charges of money laundering, conspiracy, and financial fraud. Now, prior to his arrest, Fried was planning to testify before the House Committee on Financial Services, and Forbes obtained what he was planning to say. Now, it's a lengthy statement to say the least, lengthy testimony, but it seems as though he was planning on lying in a lot of ways. So I'll give you, I'll give you some excerpts that I think are relevant here. First, he starts off with something that is not a lie, so credit where credit is due. He begins it with, I would like to start by formally stating under oath, I effed up.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So Anna, you're right that that's true, but even that's misleading because he makes it seem like, oops, it was an honest mistake. Oh, I was gonna go left, but I went right. Oh, I effed up. No, you planned to move the funds around so you could make money off of other people's money, and then you lost that money because you were greedy. That's not effing up, that's doing it on purpose. That's a different situation. But okay, it's a good start though, I'll take it.
Now, in order to understand how he's full of crap for the rest of what I'm gonna read, I think it's important for you to hear from federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York. They had a press conference today to explain in detail what the charges are, what he is being accused of. So let's listen to that, and I'll tell you what Bankman-Fried claims is going on.
First, we charge that from 2019 until earlier this year, Bankman-Fried and his co-conspirators stole billions of dollars from FTX customers. He used that money for his personal benefit, including to make personal investments and to cover expenses and debts of his hedge fund, Alameda Research. Secondly, and relatedly, we charge that Bankman-Fried lied to Alameda's lenders about the source of the money that he was using to pay those debts. Third, we charge that earlier this year, in the midst of the crypto crisis, Bankman-Fried lied to investors in FTX about the fact that he had sent billions of dollars in FTX customer money to Alameda. And fourth, we charge that Bankman-Fried violated federal campaign finance laws by causing tens of millions of dollars in illegal campaign contributions to be made to candidates and committees associated with both Democrats and Republicans.
Now, I'm sure Cenk has a lot to say about the campaign finance law as part of this, so I'll leave that to you in just a moment, but I have a few things to say. So understand that there are really two companies at play here, and Sam Bankman-Fried was behind both companies, okay? So you have the FTX exchange, the crypto exchange, where people are thinking, I'm gonna invest in FTX, I'm gonna invest in crypto, I don't wanna miss the boat on this is how I'm gonna get rich. So they're investing in the cryptocurrencies through FTX, right? Now, the second company in question is Alameda Research, which is a hedge fund. And so what Sam Bankman-Fried is being accused of is taking the depositor money from the FTX exchange and essentially gambling with it and losing it. And then there was a bank run, the equivalent of a bank run, which led to the eventual collapse of FTX, and he ended up filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, he seems to think that his biggest mistake was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which I would venture to say was not his biggest mistake. So he says in the testimony, I know that it doesn't mean much to say that I am sorry. It doesn't. And so I'm dedicating as much of myself as I can to doing right by customers. When all is said and done, I'll judge myself primarily by one metric, whether I have eventually been able to make customers whole. If I fail our customers in this regard, I have failed myself. Now, he claims that he was pressured to sign the Chapter 11 bankruptcy documents and it was a big mistake. He says, quote, I deeply regret giving into pressure to sign forms that precipitated the Chapter 11 filing just a few days after FTX International became potentially insolvent. Among other things, the Chapter 11 team was thrust into a very difficult situation, and I worry that they were given very misleading information by a few members of the FTX US team when they joined. Now, he seems to think that FTX US was on the up and up, things were good, but I'm not buying that. So he says, to the best of my knowledge, FTX US has been and remains solvent and could pay off all of its customers in full tomorrow. Unfortunately, the Chapter 11 team has frozen the FTX US exchange, blocking customers access to the account information and funds. The customers who have lost assets are those who traded on the FTX international platforms, which do not accept US residents. Now, he might still have to testify. It's just that he's gonna have to testify in court. If the extradition goes as planned, he does have the ability to appeal that effort. But considering the fact that he has embarrassed rich, famous people, it is unlikely that the extradition appeal will work.
Yeah, look, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. His biggest mistake was the haircut, let's be honest, okay? Or the lack of one. In fact, the good news about going to federal prison is he'll get the first haircut of his life. So now let's move into serious stuff. So look, his mindset's unbelievable, but it's because the rest of us don't live in Silicon Valley and didn't grow up in a situation where there's spectacular wealth everywhere and everyone abuses the system and thinks that it's perfectly normal and that robbery is just a normal way of doing business. So he seems genuinely shell-shocked. Like his whole perspective, he still doesn't get it. He kept talking about how he's gonna make it back. Dude, it's over. You're in Chapter 11, you're not getting control of the company again. You lost, look, the market cap on FTX at one point was either 72 or 82 billion dollars. Now it's gone. No, he seems like a kid, and he is, by the way, he's really young. So he grew up this arrogant and entitled, etc. So he seems like a kid going, look, if you just let me double down a couple more times, I can make it back. I can make it back. You just bet on black. And then when you win, you bet on it again. And then one more time, and then I got it back. Why won't they just let me gamble anymore? Well, that's not how it works. But to be fair to him, it is kind of how it works.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of the other crypto companies are doing as well. And he has said before in talking to reporters, and that's why he's being weirdly honest sometimes when he talks about how he bought off the Republicans and the Democrats. He said to the reporters, I don't get it, everybody does it. Yeah, I know, you're all crooks, you're the one who got caught.
Well, okay, so I want to talk about it in the context of traditional banks, right? Because when you're depositing money in a traditional bank, especially if it's a savings account, the reason why there are certain penalties or fees that they might charge you if you're taking too much money out of your savings account or the remaining balance is too low is because they want to gamble with your money. That's what they do with it, right?
Yeah.
But there are regulations
yes.
to protect you. So obviously there's the FDIC insured situation where if the bank fails, your money will be protected under the federal government to a certain amount. I believe it's about $250,000 if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, and there are other regulations in place as well. For instance, the bank has to have some amount of liquidity in order to ensure, if they make bad investments with that money, they're able to not like screw over the depositor.
Yeah, so let me give you just a little bit more detail on that. So you'll have leverage limits, right? And they vary all the time. They depend on the jurisdiction. They depend on the laws that were passed. And a lot of times the government deregulates the banks, and then that leads to what? Disasters, because the minute they're deregulated, they do the same thing Sam Bankman-Fried does. In fact, that's what they did in 2008, where they collapsed the whole global economy. So if Sam Bankman-Fried said, well, they did it in 2008, and those are all guys who you guys still revere, well, that's true. And what did they do? They would, and Paul Volcker tried to end this. It was called the Volcker Rule, where they would end proprietary trading, where the bank takes your money on one side, your deposits, and then uses it to gamble on the other side. And the government had then deregulated so much that they didn't even have leverage limits, so they could take almost unlimited risk. And since it's your money, they have an incentive to take more risk, because the more risk they take, the more profit they get. But if they lose the money, who cares? It's your money anyway. Right? It's not their money.
What's the big deal, huh? We provided a place for you to put your money, and then we lost it. What's the big deal?
And that's basically what they said in 2008.
Yeah.
And all of the very, very corrupt politicians, definitely both Republicans and Democrats, said, oh yeah, they're right. And these are the giants of the world, and they're the greatest people on earth. And let's bail them out with your money again, this time your taxpayer money. And so they went back to it. But they put in some small changes. So Dodd-Frank was trumpeted as the greatest, most epic, historic financial reform bill ever, because that's corporate media. They're doing the cover-up, right? In reality, it was so weak that Volcker wanted to take his name off of the bill. He's like, you didn't ban proprietary trading at all, so please stop lying as if I support this bill. Paul Volcker used to be a very conservative head of the Federal Reserve. Now he's considered, or was considered, a progressive, right? He didn't change his positions at all. The country has become so deeply corrupt that Volcker's like, this is absurd. This isn't capitalism. You guys are just robbing the place.
Exactly.
Right? And so that's what Sam Bankman-Fried was doing, but with no regulations.
With no regulations.
At the crypto side. So when you have no regulations, it's not just him. I would be shocked if everyone in crypto wasn't doing the same exact trick and robbing you absolutely blind.
And before we forget, listen, the campaign finance part of this I think is fascinating. I can't wait to learn more. And as we had shared with you last week, while it was well known that Sam Bankman-Fried was pumping a lot of money into the campaign coffers of corporate Democrats, he admitted on the record that he donated the same amount to Republicans, but did so through dark money donations. And one of the other things that he confessed to was that while he made public statements about his openness to regulations of cryptocurrency, it was all BS, it was all publicity. He even said F regulations, F regulators. He doesn't want regulations, then he's not able to rob the depositors and gamble with their money. But anyway, we'll learn more through this investigation and the ongoing investigation into this. So I can't wait to find out what else he was up to. But Cenk, the financial stuff, campaign stuff.
So look, I don't even know what they're gonna charge him with on that front. And I say that because I think that's the one thing that I thought he did that was, to be honest with you guys, perfectly legal. Now, is it moral? No, of course not. No, but we did legalize bribery. You can't give to the politicians directly and have them put it in their pocket, but you almost kind of can, because you can give it to their campaigns and their campaigns can spend it on their own properties like Trump did. They could funnel it to themselves in 18 different ways, but you could certainly bribe them in terms of campaign contributions. You give unlimited amount, you'd give it through dark PACs, you could give it through other PACs, and that's what he did, and he was brazen about it. But if what he did is illegal, that's great news, because then you should go arrest Democratic Majority for Israel, who was the lobbyists that were in the same exact campaigns as he was on the same exact side. You can go arrest the Koch brothers, you can go arrest all of these corporations that do the same things that he does. And so look, if by the way, while you're at it, why don't you go arrest both the Republicans and the Democrats that he gave the money to, if that's illegal? But I guarantee you at some point they're gonna drop that portion of the charges, because they're gonna realize, oh, right, of course, our bad, bribery's totally legal. And what he did was what every lobbyist and every company does, because our politicians are crooks. Here, I'll give you one example. Chantel Brown took money from him through a super PAC, directed through so that it doesn't go straight to her, right? But that was in essence to win her election, which she did. They took millions of dollars, they spent it against Nina Turner, who's now our host on Boss, and they bought the election. He bought Chantel Brown's votes. You think Chantel Brown didn't promise to vote with Sam Bankman-Fried? That he was like, oh, I'll just trust her. No, he knew Nina Turner is honest, and she has to be defeated because she's a progressive who would actually protect consumers. Chantel Brown is deeply dishonest and will make sure to protect me instead of consumers. So find every Democrat, and by the way, a Republican if you can, that he gave money to, and you'll find a crook.